Montego Bay left Dunbeholden stunned, the ultimate defense was no trouble for the Phoenix, and the champs were torched by a Firehouse. But we start one place and one place only, and that's in Jerusalem, where the Junglers were back into form. This is Match Week 3 review show. Yeah people, welcome back to Champion Fan, and first of all, I apologize for posting this so late, as the Reggae Boys had the nation's focus. But anyway, the show must go on, and we will begin in Jerusalem, where Harbour was renting to host Arnett Gardens. First, the starting lineup for the Stars of the East. Garth Stewart is the main man in defense, Alvinus Myers kept his spot, and Trayvon Reed makes his first start of the season, but Akwasa Chung misses out. As for the Junglers, Anthony Bennett is in goal against his old team, Shane Watson joined Joel Jones in defense, and Fabian Reed is fit enough to get the start again. Now, when the game started, the tempo was pretty high, perhaps a good indicator for the crazy game that awaited us all. But Arnett were definitely the aggressors, and Kelson gave an early warning to Graham in Harbour goal that a storm was coming. Arnett's relentless attacks kept going, with the Junglers testing Graham after numerous breakaways. But Harbour weathered the storm and had a massive chance to take the lead when Rowan Broad got free in the box, but he was spectacularly stopped by his former teammate Bennett. At this point, it was shocking a goal hasn't arrived in the match so far, so of course one would be gifted. In the 36th minute, Kelson was a happy recipient and finally gave Arnett the lead. But remember, Arnett's defense has been leaking heavily so far this season, and so it was no surprise Harbour would equalize things in the 41st minute from this header, and it was 1-1 at the halftime break. That goal was the Stars of the East first of the season, and it gave them a newfound confidence to start the second half. But Arnett eventually took back control and took back the lead. Roderick Granville did the slick moves at the byline to set up his captain Fabian Reed, who neatly took the goal away. 2-1, and the Junglers were only just getting started. But credit to Harbour, they were determined not to lose today and got back on level terms in the 51st minute after splendid work from Trayvon Reed, who found Brown in the box, and the winger made no mistake this time, beating Bennett 2-2. And they should have taken the lead not long after that, after another good work by Reed, but his cross was wasted by his teammate. The game was nicely in the balance at this point, but unlike the scorer, would break the deadlock. Jones here with the powerful shot to find a lower corner to make it 3-2. Harbour again responded well to losing the lead, but it would be the Junglers' time to extend it after Fabian Reed was the lucky guy after this lapse in Harbour defense to get himself a brace. 4-2, and surely the home team's resistance was finally over. But there was still time for Arnett to put them out of their misery. Shepherd here with the long-range effort to keep up his streak of scoring against these opponents in the JPL. 5-2 on the board, and that's the fat lady singing. After that, both teams continued to entertain the crowd with goal-scoring opportunities, but the scoreboard would remain the same at full time. So it was another goal fest between these two teams, but how was the game in terms of stats? No surprise, Arnett Gardens had more possession with 63%, and blew Harbour away in total shots with 21. A whopping 14 of those were on target, while Harbour had only 6 on target. Now, these are the Junglers that richly entertained us the last couple of years. As expected, the attack is a different breed with all the big guns in the lineup, but the defense still needs work. But it's the first win of the season, and they're now off and running. As for Harbour Trayvon Reed really makes a world of a difference in the attack, but the defense is no concern. They have to find the right balance and fast. But anyway, once again it ended. Harbour 2, Arnett Gardens 5. We now move on to Turner's Oval in Clarendon, where home team Chapelton were facing their real first test in Portmore United. First, the 11 for the home team. Kevin Graham kept his spot in defense, so too did Marcus Ross up top, but Malik Stevens was replaced by Shamron Phillips in midfield. As for the visitors, former Phoenix player Marcus Reed was given a start. We got our first look at new signing Venton Evans, and the exciting Cardinal Benbow finally was given a start. Now, when the game started, there was a nice swift tempo to the match as both teams were already looking for goals. There was action in both boxes, but both keepers weren't really tested in the early stages. Things remained fairly even until Shamron Phillips broke the deadlock with this gem. Yet another long-way strike from a Phoenix player gives the home team the lead in the 19th minute. Portmore did respond well to going down, so much so the Maroons head coach Donovan Duke felt he had to help his defenders out with a little tackle of his very own. Hilariously, he picked up a yellow card for his troubles. Portmore kept up their pressure, but the Maroons remained resolute in their defense. There was a decent back and forth between the two teams at this point, and things even got a little chippy. But Portmore would end the half stronger and even got themselves a goal. From the set piece, Rashawn Small managed to get onto the end of things and brought his team level in the 41st minute, 1-1, and that's how things would remain at the halftime break. Second half now, and Portmore started where they left off in the first and dominated proceedings. Chapelton were indeed under severe pressure, but these are the times you need your senior players to step up. But no one, and I mean no one, saw this wonder goal coming from the Maroons captain, Andrew Vanzi. What a goal, and I know he doesn't drink alcohol, but he deserved a crate of beer and bottles of whites from his teammate after that stunner. 2-1 the Maroons lead. Portmore somehow found himself down again and went hunting for another equalizer, but that meant they left themselves a bit stretched at the back and the Maroons would take full advantage. Brazilian Marcos Rojas would find himself at the end of this delightful delivery to make it 3-1 in the 75th minute. Portmore didn't lose spirit though after this, despite being 2 down, and kept on fighting to salvage something out of the game. And they would eventually find another goal deep in injury time thanks to this bullet header from Ramon Howell. But it was all a little too late as the Phoenix soared to the top of the standings with another win. So the Maroons were cooking at home, but how was the game in terms of stats? Portmore actually had more possession with 52%, as well as total shots with 11 compared to Chapelton's 9. Both teams, however, were dead even on shots on goal, and there were a total of 26 fouls in the game as things got a bit chippy at times. So yeah, I will start with the Phoenix, and their fans must be smiling ear to ear seeing their team on top of the table. This win makes it 3 wins in a row to start the season, a new club record, and everything just going rosy for Butler & Co. As for Portmore, their fans must be pulling their hair out. The team not only scored some goals, but looked at offensive threat all game long. But unfortunately, the defense looked a shell of itself. Just like Arnett, it's all about finding the right balance. But again, this one ends Phoenix Chapelton Maroons 3, Portmore United 2. So Portmore United lost here, but how did their neighbours Dunbeholden got on in their big home clash against Montego Bay United? Here's the starting 11 for the home team. Peter Harrison was back in goal after that nasty injury. Shaquem Powell also made a return, and Stephen Barnett hits the bench. As for the visitors, Matthew Uling is rested, Wellington captains, and Dwight Merrick faces his old team. Now, when the game started, things were a bit drab as the football lacked any colour. Both teams were finding it difficult to get into a rhythm, and this was especially so for Mobe. No surprise since this is their home ground, but Dunbeholden will settle first, and Via Nelson gets off the first meaningful shot in the game. They didn't score on that occasion, but their tails were clearly up and started to produce 1 and 2 good looks at Mobe's goal. Mobe, for their part, were still searching for rhythm, and their front three were still searching for service. But Philando Wing came close to finding a lead with his thunderous free kick. But Harrison did well to keep things scoreless though. However, Mobe got back a little pep in their steps and was now matching Dunbeholden stride for stride. But the St. Catherine-based club should have really taken the lead here when a mix-up by the Mobe back line saw Powell staring at the empty goal, but somehow he shot wide. That was a big miss there from the team from West. Mobe would retaliate, especially down the left hand side, as both Sterling and Merrick began to see more of the ball, but despite their best efforts, there would be no goals before halftime break. Second half now, and Dunbeholden blasted out of the blocks immediately, putting pressure on that Mobe's defense. Mobe would survive, but had a hard time escaping their own half as Dunbeholden piled on the pressure. And eventually, pressure bust pipe, Weather Brown with the corner, and somehow it made itself into the 6-yard box and caused a mad scramble that then saw it hit the post before hitting Rankin and went into the back of the net. An ugly own goal for the home team, but the home fans did not care one bit. 1-0 to Dunbeholden. Moynes were still dazed, and Dunbeholden would continue their onslaught down the left to cause more trouble and even found the back of the net again, but the ref called it a foul. Although if you look at it closely, I think Burton got away with this one. Seeing the game slipping away, Moynes head coach Xavier Gilbert knew he had to do something, and he made 3 changes that saw Jordan Fletcher, Shamor Smith and Wayne Gordon all entering the field of play. But it would be the left back Malachi Sterling who came closest to a breakthrough with this shot, but it was well saved by Harrison. Then Binns just missed the target for Dunbeholden down the other end. Dunbeholden was still slightly ahead, but the home fans was becoming restless with a slender lead. And in the 88th minute, their fears were justified. From a corner, both Fletcher and Gordon used their experience to get across into the box, where Lima was there waiting and ready to pounce. 1-1, and Moynes did well to get back into the game. But Dunbeholden must have felt that they deserved all 3 points and was throwing caution to the wind, but that also means they were in danger of being countered. Bin would lose the ball here, and Fletcher was off to the races down the right flank before finding Smith, who then took his defender to the byline before floating across to the back post to find a somehow free Dwight Merrick, who tapped it home to give them the big lead. 2-1, and the comeback was completed. So a good win on the road for Moynes, but how was the game in terms of stats? No possession stats, but Dunbeholden just edged out Moynes in total shots 8-7. 2 shots on target for the home team and 4 for the visitors, and only 2 yellow cards in the game. Alright, starting with Moynes first. This was their worst performance of the season, but they must feel good to get a away win despite that. That might be a sign of greater things to come, but they still want to be a bit sharper in their next outing. As for Dunbeholden, I actually thought that this was their best performance of the season, but yet they lost. Tough break, but maybe a sign that they are finally adapting to Damian Gardner's way of playing. But anyway, once again it ended. Dunbeholden 1, Montego Bay United 2. Now we leave St. Catherine and head to St. Elizabeth, where our topsy-turvy game was unfolding. We begin with the starting lineup for the home team Treasure Beach. Anderson gets a start in favor of Ryan Porter. Flemings returns to the team, and last week goal scorer Amari Brown gets the start this time around. As for the visitors Molynes United, Rashawn Livingston returns to the starting lineup, Marlon Pennycook was benched, and O'Dane Murray continued at right back. Now, when the game began, it was a confident start by the home side, and they were unlucky not to take the lead here on the corner from this shot from the centre-back Titus. But Molynes eventually found their footing and managed to even get their first shot in the game with this effort from Laws, but it was no threat at all. But after this, there was no real flow to the game, with both teams struggling to keep hold of the ball. I mean, this weak cross from Livingston was the only real excitement we were getting at this point. But the game finally burst into life in the 39th minute with this corner kick that somehow found its way to Jaheim Harris, who was spectacularly denied at the doorsteps by Tyrese Gordon in goal. Scoreless it remained. That ended up being the last major action before the halftime break. So the first half was forgettable, but thankfully the second half was totally different. Molynes would start more on the front foot, but again they failed to work the goalkeeper on this effort. But they were the ones playing the better football and were desperate for the opening goal. They would finally find it in the 68th minute after Livingston played his pinpoint delivery into the box and onto the head of substitute Marlon Pennycook, who made no mistake. 1-0, and it was more than what Molynes deserved. However, this woke the home team out of their slumber, and they would find the equalizer just 2 minutes later. Brian this time with the delivery, and Ryan Porter made no mistake to net him his first goal for the club. 1-1, and it was no game on. At this point was all hell broke loose as 2 more minutes elapsed and Molynes would once again regain the lead. And it was a total gift. Enrique Gordon hit his free kick into the box, and I'm not sure if Morgan slipped when he left his line to claim it, but the ball spun past him and went into the empty goal. 2-1 to the visitors. At this point the home team were stunned, but they would shake it off and control the rest of the match as desperation began to kick in. And they really should have been level in the 86th minute, but I would need a first degree in physics to explain this miss from Porter. But Treasure Beach would keep up the pressure, pressing for the next goal, but again, Porter somehow missed it from close range. Harris would be next with a big chance, but he hit the crossbar, and head coach Kamar Ricketts must have accepted this simply would not be his day. But in the 93rd minute, Kevon McGregor would save the day. Porter held the ball up well before slipping in McGregor, who poured his shot past Brown and into the back of the net. 2-2, and it was pure pandemonium in the venue as Treasure Beach snatched a share of the points at the death. So it was a lively end to the game, but how was the game in terms of stats? The home team managed more total shots with 15 compared to Molynes' 12. Only 3 were on target for Treasure Beach, with Porter being the main culprit as missing so many, and 4 on target for Molynes. 4 yellow cards in the match, and they all went to Molynes United. So yeah, let's begin with the home team. It wasn't their best performance obviously, but Ricketts must be delighted with their never say die attitude. He would also be hoping Porter has better days in front of the goal than that. As for Molynes United, this one will sting for sure. They played the better football in parts, but dropped off too much in the final 15 minutes and allowed Treasure Beach to come at them, which proved to be detrimental. Anyway, once again this ends Treasure Beach 2, Molynes United 2. So that was Treasure Beach, but now we look at their fellow promoted team, Spanish Town Police FC, who was in Kingston for a Monday night clash with Tivoli Gardens. First, the starting lineup for Tivoli, Diego Harton was in goal after his man of the match performance last time out. Kimberly Smith also got his spot in midfield, and Justin Down and Anthony Nelson will once again lead the line. As for Police FC, new signed Redmond gets his first start, Captain Walters leads from the centre-back position, and Ellingston will be once again up front. Now, when the game started, Tivoli were already on the front foot, pressing and cornering Police FC in their own box. It took Police 10 minutes before they finally started stringing some passes around, but it was still all Tivoli, and they would find the opener in the 15th minute of an absolute gift. Police made a meal of things at the back, and Nelson stole in and got one of the easiest goals this weekend. 1-0 to the Tangerine and Black, and they would again look the more dangerous outfit for the next 5 minutes as they controlled possession. But Police steadily crept back into the game and had a decent effort on target via the shot from Ricketts. They kept up this pressure and began to ask real questions of Tivoli back line. But Tivoli should have extended their lead in the 34th minute, but Nelson only found the post and Alton Lewis could not steer his rebound on frame. But Tivoli got back their control. As for Police, they only had themselves to blame for not being on level terms when they wasted this golden opportunity to draw a level. And then things got even worse for them. In the 45th minute, they conceded a penalty thanks to this hardened ball, and Nelson had no issues completing his brace. So Tivoli took the big lead at a halftime break. Second half now, and again Tivoli were the ones at the front foot and were almost rewarded with a weird own goal. But Police FC will be gifted a goal of their very own off this free kick here in the 52nd minute. I am not sure if raindrops got into Harton's eyes, but this was an absolute howler from the Tivoli goalkeeper to give a massive lifeline to Police FC. 2-1 at this point. That goal gave Police the confident boost they needed, and the game's tempo sped up a bit as a result. But both teams basically cancelled each other out, and chances were at a premium. In fact, the game's next major incident was the ejection of Police FC Holmes after the second half substitute picked up 2 yellow cards in a span of 21 minutes. That effectively killed off the contest for Police, although they showed great heart in the end to try and squeeze out a point, but it was not meant to be. So Tivoli got a big win, but how was the game in terms of stats? Well, Tivoli managed to have more possession with 54%, as well as outshoot Police 13-8. 5 was on target for Tivoli, while only 2 was on target for Spanish Town Police FC. Okay, I will start with Tivoli first. They really needed that win. It should quicken the gelling of the current squad. They will need as much points as possible until starman Nicola Fuller returns from injury. As for Police FC, another close fought contest, but yet another defeat. They are definitely competitive, but unless they receive a boatload of quality players in the January transfer market, their stay in the JPL will be short. Anyway, this one ends Tivoli Gardens 2, Spanish Town Police FC 1. On to our final game, and it was the defending champs taking on Waterhouse of Jerusalem. We will begin with Cavalier starting lineup. Chad James get the nod to start up front. So too did new boy Daryl Massicott, and Dwayne Allen returned to midfield. As for Waterhouse, no Amani Leacock, so Shamari Dallas comes in. There's no Wilson in defense, and Javane Bryant start alongside Colorado Murray up top. Now, when the game kicked off, there was an immediate chance for Cavalier, but Chad James had to do better on this occasion. But after that miss, it was a nice even contest as both teams were seeking an early goal. But Waterhouse would have to wait until the 9th minute, but it was well worth the wait. After the set piece, the ball fell to Xander Bicknell, who didn't hesitate to let rip a 20-yard blast that beat the frozen Jadine White. 1-0, and Waterhouse already had Cavalier ruin that earlier miss. The champs did respond well, again through Chad James, who did well to reach the ball before Bernard, and despite keeping his composure, could not beat the final yellow shirt on the line. Close, but another chance went begging for Cavalier. Cavalier would keep up the pressure after that, but just could not break down the Waterhouse defense, while Firehouse themselves looked more and more dangerous on set pieces. Cavalier tried with all their might, but to no avail, and Waterhouse would keep their slender lead at the halftime break. Second half now, Cavalier continued their pressure from where they left off in the first, but Waterhouse defense remained unbreakable. Except on this direct play right here, where the flick on freed up Stein in behind, and the Surinamese striker should have buried this chance, but he fluffed his shot. A big escape for Waterhouse. But Waterhouse would get a glorious opportunity of their very own after a training ground routine failed Cavalier, and Waterhouse were off to the races on the counter. And Juma Johnson eventually would have the ball and in a one-on-one with White, but steered his shot just wide of the upright. So 1-0 it remained. And they were almost made to pay after substitute Lewis Watson cracked the shot from distance, but lucky for them, it hit the post, despite Bernard being rooted to his spot. Cavalier would huff and puff after this, but there would be no blowing down of this house as Firehouse Nation hung on for a crucial victory. So a tough loss for the champs, but how was the game turned out stats? Well, Waterhouse actually had more possession, 57 compared to Cavalier 43, and Waterhouse actually outshot them 14-12. Both teams only managed 2 shots on target, while Cavalier had 84 dangerous attacks compared to Waterhouse 56. Okay, let's start with Cavalier, and well, their assistant coach Everdeen Scarlett said it best. It's not easy replacing 40 goals. Stein has been a total letdown so far this season, but I still believe he only needs 1 goal to get the floodgates open. Rudolph Speed and the coaching staff are hoping that happens sooner rather than later. As for Waterhouse, I challenged them before the start of the season to be a little more mature in their defending, and well, hats off to them, this was a very mature performance, and one that should serve them well for the rest of the season. Anyway, this one ends Cavalier 0, Waterhouse FC 1. So yeah, I know it's a bit late, but that was match week 3 in a nutshell. Now let's look at the table real quick heading into match week 4. And it's the Phoenix that are on top with 9 points from their first 3 games. Montego Bay is hot on their trails with 7 points from their 3 games. Racing was idle, but they remained in third with 6 points. Waterhouse come up to 4th now with 6 points of their own. Portmore dropped into 5th with 4 points. Treasure Beach is up high with 4 points as well, and so is Tivoli with 4 points. The defending champs are currently outside the playoff spot with 4 points in 8th. Arnett got the first 3 points on the board and he got them into 9th. Dunbeholden remained 10th with 3 points. Mount Pleasant were also idle, and it's weird to see them this low. They have 2 points from 2, and Molynes also have 2 points but from 3 games. Harbour have 1 dege point in 13th, and Port's Punishtown Police FC fought hard, but they have no points to show for it. But anyway guys, that is all from this match week 3 review show. Again, I apologize for the late upload, but better late than never. But anyway, please like, subscribe and share as we look to keep you all up to date on everything in the JPL leading up to the final in May. Otherwise, with great JPL content, you're already at the right place. Jamaica fan. YouTube, big up yourself.